So we'll get started because we're already a bit late, which is my fault. So thank you for attending the Impetus Open Call webinar today. This is for our third Open Call, and this is our second of two webinars. The first one was, I think, the 22nd of January. My name is Neil Reeves. I'm in charge of the evaluation selection process for the Accelerator call, and with me I have my colleague Pablo Bess, who is responsible for the European Union Prize for Citizen Science, and also Chris Stiles, who is responsible for our communications and kind of maintaining the website and keeping you all informed as well. So that they'll both speak a bit later, but I'll get started because we are a little bit behind as it is. What is Impetus? Impetus is a CSA. It's a coordination and support action for citizen science, which focuses on diversity, impact, and inclusion. A CSA is a type of European project. You have RIAs, research and innovation actions, and you have CSAs, which have coordination and support actions. We fund and support new and established citizen science initiatives, enabling them to become more inclusive, participatory, and impactful, and maximize their contributions to the European Green Deal and to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. We also award the European Union Prize for Citizen Science to recognize outstanding citizen science projects and their contribution to science and society. There's already a hand raised. Is that
cool? For now, we will just, if there's any hands raised right now, I think we will either push them back later on, just because don't want to mess with your flow for the introduction. And then there'll be time later to come back to some questions. There might be a little bit of time in between the two sessions just to do anything very pressing, but I'll also be keeping an eye on the chat. So I'll try to make sure that we don't forget anyone, but you can also make a note of it there.
Great, thank you. The participant list isn't working for me. I can only let people in I can't actually see. So hands might be a bit interesting later on, but I'm sure we'll find a solution. Great, so on the next slide, you should be able to see both types of open call that we run. So we have the Accelerator call, which is the one that I'm sort of in charge of overseeing, for which we have two types of projects. We have kickstarting projects, effectively new projects, which receive 20,000 euros of funding, and we have sustaining projects, which are established projects. The cutoff is kind of 6 months, so they're more than 6 months old, which receive 10,000 euros of funding. And then we have the European Union Prize for Citizen Science, which consists of kind of 3 prizes. There's a Grand Prix, there's a prize for diversity, and there is a prize for digital communities. We previously ran both calls in 2023 and 2024, and this is the third and final edition of both calls in 2025, at least for the foreseeable future. On the next slide, you'll see kind of what we define citizen science as. So citizen science is kind of a broad and sometimes controversial term, but we define it as the public participation in scientific research activities when citizens actively contribute to science, either with their intellectual efforts or by sustaining knowledge or with their tools and resources, which was the definition defined by the European Commission in 2014. The term covers quite a wide range of activities, and it could involve different levels of participation. It could be anything from data collection in projects that are mostly scientist-led to co-design or even leading by citizen scientists in defining research questions and policy. It could be issues as well around scientific literacy and public engagement, which are both quite important for some of the challenges this year, which I'll go into more detail on a later slide. But effectively, for our purposes, to truly be considered citizen science, it's important that projects have the intention to contribute to research, produce new research-based knowledge, and for activities to be carried out by the participating citizens. So it's that citizen participation that's kind of the important part for us. So projects that just have kind of a science communication or dissemination goal wouldn't typically come under the sort of umbrella of citizen science as perceived by Impetus. When we talk about citizen science initiatives, Impetus seeks to support specific citizen science activities. This list isn't necessarily exhaustive, but it gives you quite a good idea. It could be citizens engaged in environmental science, social science, or humanities research, although actually any discipline is fine. Initiatives that incorporate characteristics of citizen science as defined by EXA, the European Citizen Science Association. That list can be found online. I can add the link to the chat later if anyone needs it. Science and research communication with citizens or citizen engagement in science and research communication. Participatory or participatory artistic-led research, science research education that engages citizens, research-driven science engagement for and with citizens or other outstanding initiatives in the field of citizen science, such as activities and results, stakeholders that are involved, or policy impact. The activities can be implemented by basically anyone. We don't really have a specific expectation of who can lead or run a project, as long as they're a legal entity. So it can be a diverse set of organizations and individuals. But we can't provide general support for organizations or projects. Citizen science initiatives have to have a specific action plan for their project period. And you'll see on one of the later slides that for our accelerator, we have specific challenges and specific kind of, I guess, research focuses that we expect projects to align with. The accelerator is a 7-month project, or at least a 7-month period between the 16th of June 2025 and the 16th of January 2020. That's 2026. Sorry, that's my mistake. We'll provide €20,000 of funding for new projects, which are what we call kickstarting grants, or €10,000 for established projects, which are what we call sustaining grants. You'll get a mentor to guide you through the entire process. That would be someone who either knows about the research topic you're focusing on, or someone who maybe intends to, they have some kind of specialist knowledge in terms of methodology or the country in which you're based. It will be based kind of on your needs and how best to support you. We'll provide extensive training and support suited to your needs, and we'll also arrange regular meetings across the projects to enable peer learning. It's important that this is an accelerator, so please do consider, if you're applying, how it is that Impetus can benefit your project as a whole, not just through the funding. And that is something that we do ask about at interview if you are shortlisted. You can see through this link here, which I will pop in the chat, the projects that we funded and supported last year. And there is also a link there as well that will show you the projects from the year before. I don't know why that link looks so massive on my screen, but it should work. And we seek to fund up to 35 kickstarting and up to 11 sustaining projects this year. The balance may change somewhat based on whether we, for example, choose to fund 1 less kickstarting projects and 2 more sustaining projects. But that gives you an idea of the rough numbers that we're looking at. So on the next slide, the accelerator process, this kind of shows what you would be expected to do for the accelerator. The first thing is to implement a 7-month project as agreed and specified in the contract. So you have a contract and a work plan put in place that you're kind of expected to follow. During the project implementation, you would attend training sessions. Last year, there were 5 of them. The exact number may vary slightly in the coming year, and also the number that you would be expected to attend varies based on whether you're a kickstarting or sustaining project. We have 2 operative meetings, which kind of sort of bonus activities. You'd be expected to attend one of those 2. To attend monthly update calls with your mentor, provide pictures and text of the project, present the project at events where possible, and so you should allocate some budget if you're able to outreach activities. Acknowledge the Impetus funding. We'll provide you with the text and the boilerplate language to do that. Participate in Impetus impact assessment activities, which come towards the end of the period. Present the progress at a midterm point, which would be roughly September. And at the end of the project, you'd be expected to provide a formal report outlining your activities and achievements, compile a quantitative impact assessment report, create a short video, I think it's around a minute, Chris would know this better than I do, and an article about the project. Attend an interview with and provide feedback to the Impetus team. It's not a complex interview. I did most of them last year. It's around 20 minutes, and it's basically just finding out kind of what went well for you and what you would maybe do differently in future, and also present your results at a final review meeting as well. So that's kind of the accelerator. Sorry, it's 3. There we go. 3 to 5 minutes. I said 1 minute. It's actually kind of 3 times that, but it's not a huge video. In terms of the eligibility process this year, we're actually performing rolling eligibility checks for applicants who are able to submit their project before the 7th of March. That's done by me. It's quite a brief process. Basically, I just go down the list and check that your project is eligible. So if you have any concerns about eligibility, you can either email questions through to our email, which will be given at the end, or if you just want to submit an application, I can go through and check and get back to you and let you know if there are any issues. But the requirements are that all projects have to be led by someone or something. Typically that would be an individual, a legal entity, or a consortia. They need to be located and delivered in the European research area, and we do have some restrictions on that because of time zones. So I think, for example, New Zealand is technically now in the European research area. That unfortunately is not an area that we're able to support because we're operating in kind of European time zones. You can see a list of all the eligible countries on our website. It is linked, and I can put the document in the chat if someone wants it. For kickstarting projects, the expectation is a new project, so it can be no more than 6 months old, and it shouldn't have an established community and/or data collection and processing procedures. If you have any questions about that, I am quite used to answering them now, so feel free to email them through. Alternatively, you could have a sustaining project, which is a more established project. That would typically have established processes and engaged community and would usually have been around for more than 6 months. And it will be expected to have some kind of initial evidence of impact as well. Applicants need to be responding to one of the challenges, which you'll see on our next few slides. They need to be no more than 4 pages long. That will be enforced by our submission page anyway, but just as a warning. And they need to be submitted with a signed declaration of honour and received before the deadline, which will be the 13th of March at 12 noon CET. You also will be asked to read and agree in principle to a draft contract, which you can find on the website. This doesn't bind you to actually following the terms of the contract at that point, but the reason for this is basically because in previous years we've had, I can put the link, there's a question in the chat about the draft contract, I think I can add a link there. We had lots of applicants who get to the point where they're funded and then they expect changes to the draft contract, and unfortunately we just can't make those changes, and it threatens the ability to actually give you the funding and things like that. So it's easier to do it this way around. I'll pop the link in the chat in a moment. There are 2 draft contracts. I think I've only got a few more slides to go through, and then I'll put the links there. I mentioned that we have challenges. So these are kind of research focuses that we would expect the projects to kind of align with. The accelerator evaluates, selects, and supports projects based on the response to one of these challenges. So it's very important that projects do align with one of these. Projects that don't won't be shortlisted for an interview. So there are 2 challenges. One is citizen science for circular communities, which is kind of around like recycling and reuse and those kinds of ideas. And then we have citizen science for a fair and just society. The funding available is the same, and the accelerator structure is pretty much the same, but and we don't have a preference for a particular challenge. It's not that we have to have, say, an even split of the 2, but the projects do need to have a clear relevance to at least one challenge. So it's worth thinking about kind of which one of these is most relevant to your project and your goals. The first challenge is really focused around the Sustainable Development Goals. There are 4 specific goals that are listed. There's goal 3, which is good health and well-being, 7, affordable and clean energy, 11, sustainable cities and communities, and 12, responsible consumption and production. And because of the nature of challenge 1, goal 13, which is environmental protection effectively, it is also relevant, but these are the 4 that we're kind of looking at here. While these specific sub-challenges do vary somewhat in terms of which SDGs are most relevant, projects need to demonstrate some kind of clear relevance to measuring and addressing indicators associated with at least one of these SDGs. And that's kind of what you'll be evaluated on in part for the evaluation process for challenge 1. So if you're not sure or you think that your project maybe is slightly I can't think of the word, but it's maybe not typical. It wouldn't typically align with this, as long as you can justify in your application that it is relevant to one of these SDGs, and that's the main thing that you'll be kind of evaluated against. There are 3 sub-challenges associated with this challenge, and apologies for how horrible this looks on the slide. The first is that is resource management. So basically encouraging responsible reuse of resources, predominantly natural resources, but it could include energy, could potentially include abstract resources as well. Preventing waste and pollution, education and awareness raising about sustainable lifestyles, particular attention to circularity. The second is infrastructure and housing, so the availability, efficiency, sustainability and resilience of suitable accommodation and infrastructure, things like energy, HVAC, which I think is, I forget what HVAC stands for. It's heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. There you go. I will pop that in the chat because people whose first, my first language is English and I didn't know. So there you go. I'm not sure why that's come out in a funny colour, but there we go. And public transport as well. And also disaster resilience, so safeguarding people, their homes, jobs and culture in the face of natural disasters, including climate change, community participation in disaster preparedness, prevention, recovery, and adaptation and mitigation practices as well. You may find that projects sometimes align with one or more of the sub-challenges. That's fine, but you need to pick one. Easy Chair will force you to pick one that you kind of most align with. So you'll be asked to select a challenge when you make the submission. And then challenge 2 is around a just and fair society. This challenge does have sustainable development goals associated with it. So we've got 4, which is quality education. We've got 5, which is gender equality. 10 is reduced inequalities, and 16 is peace, justice, and strong institutions. But unlike challenge 1, you won't be evaluated specifically on the relevance to these SDGs. It's fine if you do address these, and that would be great, but it may well be that a project could address the themes around the just and fair society or the sub-challenges without necessarily aligning with one or more of these SDGs. But projects do need to clearly support the goal of a fair and just society and one or more of the sub-challenge goals. They just don't necessarily need to align with these SDGs for challenge 2. Again, there are 3 sub-challenges associated with this challenge. The first is democracy and peace, so promoting, safeguarding, or enhancing understanding of democracy, the democratic process, systems, or social cohesion, or indeed peace. Inclusion, through promoting inclusion, understanding factors which lead to exclusion and inclusion, empowering marginalized communities, or promoting inclusion in novel societal or technological developments. For example, things like generative AI, like ChatGPT and all that sort of stuff would be an example here. Or promoting public trust, education, empowerment, where a broad approach to education is taken, which may include traditional educational settings or education for engagement in citizen science. One thing I want to point out is that we don't set any restrictions on how these are addressed. Challenge 2 in particular very much supports the idea of social science, humanities, or arts-based projects. That doesn't mean you couldn't use those projects for Challenge 1 as well, but Challenge 2 was designed by our citizen panel, who are particularly keen on those types of projects. But they do need to have some clear support for these goals. It's not enough for a project to merely be inclusive or democratic. So if you, for example, were to have a project that is inclusive, although that's something that we do take into account, it wouldn't necessarily be enough under the inclusion criteria. So I'll come to the questions in the chat in a moment, but the application form covers 4 areas, and they're each assessed individually, so each one is kind of equally important. The first is the idea, so what it is that you're planning, you're proposing effectively. The second is the implementation, which includes the budget, so that would be kind of the activities that you intend to do, kind of the time frame and how much resources you require for that. The third is the team and community, so who's involved, which citizen scientists do you intend to engage, that kind of thing, and also the impact, so kind of what are the outcomes of that process. Each application receives 3 reviews. 2 of them are external experts, and 1 of them will be a member of the Impetus panel, and you'll be scored on a 5-point scale for each criterion, so you kind of get a maximum score of sort of 20. What we do is we take up to 92 applications with the highest number of points that have no less than 3 points in each area. In the first year, that meant that you needed a score of around 12. In our second year, the score that was required to get to interview was kind of 15. We don't expect it to be as high this year. There were some complicating factors last year, but it will be effectively the highest scoring projects that are shortlisted. You can see a detailed list of the criteria in our guide for applicants. I think it's one of the last pages. It's in the appendix near the end. There are some instructions on the application form. I'm sure you can all read, but just to really emphasize this, because people make these mistakes every year, I'm just going to go through them briefly now. The first is that the template itself cannot be changed. So you want to download a copy of the template, remove the cover page, which will have this text on it, and start answering the questions. Don't change the page layout or margins. You can resize the response cells by making them longer. If you need more sentences for a box, that's fine, but don't make them wider. So just basically, they should resize themselves if you keep typing. But if you need to resize them to fit the text in, then you can do that vertically. So you can do it down, but you can't do it out to the left and right. Generally speaking, the length of the boxes in the template has been selected to be indicative of roughly the length of the responses we anticipate, but it may actually look different between different proposals, different sub-challenges and things like that. So it's not necessarily a hard and fast rule. You can adjust the title font size if your title is longer than one line. That's absolutely fine. What I would say is that actually the title on the application form itself doesn't really matter. If your title is very long, if you want to just give a short version of it, that is absolutely fine. It's my job to check this, and I'm not going to penalize you because your title is different between the application and the EasyChair instance. That's absolutely fine. Just if you want to put like a word or something, because otherwise it starts to take up quite a lot of your space. The proposal needs to have a maximum length of 4 pages, and EasyChair will enforce that. You can't go over the 4 pages. Don't add appendices. We wouldn't look at them anyway. So just stick to the 4 pages. You do need to answer all of the questions. Don't delete any parts of the question or resize the questions in the table. Just answer them in order effectively. The font size should default to Arial 11 point and single spacing. Please don't change that. There is some leeway on that. I know that if you're using certain operating systems or software, then it will slightly change the fonts. That's not an issue. But if you really alter the sizing, then that would be a reason for rejection. Links to external documents to answer a question aren't allowed. That's not us being harsh. That's because we have so many applications that we just won't end up looking at them. If you want to include links to a website or previous work you've carried out, that's all right, but I would say it's not really worth adding because the likelihood that the reviewers will look at it in any detail is not very high. So try to focus on only including the content that needs to be there to answer a given question. The budget needs to cover the 7-month accelerator period, and it needs to amount to a maximum of 20,000 for kickstarting grants or 10,000 for sustaining grants. Every year we have applicants who put in budgets that cover a year. We can't distinguish between those that intend to get follow-up funding for the accelerator and things like that. So we can only judge on the accelerator itself. So if your budget goes over 20,000, it will be rejected. Visual elements can be included, but they need to remain readable. I would say don't include them. Frankly, we have had some very impressive charts, but given that you've only got 4 pages, unless it's really saving you space, I would say don't worry about the charts. There are no bonus points for making your application look pretty. And the proposal needs to be uploaded on our online submission platform as a PDF. You can register for that early before you add the extra information. EasyChair, which is the online submission platform we use, for those who haven't used it, can be a little bit temperamental. Every year we have applications that people try and make at the last minute, and EasyChair can sometimes throw up some interesting issues. So it's worth getting your application in a little bit earlier. Unfortunately, we have that hard cutoff, and we won't be able to have any movement on that. These instructions are all on the application form itself, so you don't need to worry too much about remembering them. The submission platform looks a bit like this. I had to move some of these pictures around, so sorry, they overlap a little bit. So you've got you log in through the link with the first boxes with the password and the email address, and then you answer each of the questions in turn. So you give the author information. It will make you give 3 author names. You don't actually need to do that. Just 1 is fine. It will say the others are required, but it will let you submit it without. This is one of the interesting quirks of EasyChair. You need a title, some keywords, topics, who's applying, what your project acronym is, the type of grant you're applying for, the challenges you're applying for, the sub-challenges. For complex reasons that I don't really have time to go into here, the sub-challenges for previous years have to remain listed on EasyChair. So please make sure you pick one of the sub-challenges for this year. I did try and remove them, but unfortunately, because of things EasyChair does behind the scenes, it's kept those old applications around, and we now can't move them. So these challenges still exist. It's not the end of the world. As if it's clear from your application that you're addressing one of these sub-challenges, that's not a problem. But you'll see that, for example, food and sustainable lifestyles is one of the challenges from last year. It's actually old. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So basically, this question here, this question that you see that says which sub-challenge you're applying for, you'll see some of the sub-challenge topics like food and sustainable lifestyles is not one of this year's challenges. So just make sure that you pick one of this year's challenges. Again, it's not the end of the world. I can probably tell from your application, and I'm not going to reject anyone just because EasyChess is something different to the application itself, but it does make things a little bit easier. I did try and find a solution to that, but unfortunately, we're a bit stuck with it. The stage the project is currently in, and there's another question as well, and then you have to go for each of these. The Sustainable Development Goals, impact. The impact questions are more important for sustaining projects than they are for kickstarting projects. It may well be that you don't have any idea yet of which of these you're going to apply for. There's a draft contract, which I will put the links to in the chat. There is an application form, which is the application form itself. Make sure you put each link in the right place, each document, because it enforces them by length, and the application form can be longer than the Declaration of Honour. We've had some people swap them around in the past. And then you upload the Declaration of Honour as well. Both of those need to be in a PDF format, which you can create from Word. If anyone has any issues with that, feel free to email and I can find a solution for you. Most of the questions are fairly self-explanatory.
Neil, we've had a request if could slow the pace down a little bit. Sorry.
I'll try. We've had lots of questions in the chat. I'm not sure if we're going to get through them all. I think that's it for me.
Never mind then. No, just you're just speaking quite quickly, I think was the issue.
So the application process is summarized on the next slide. Basically, you can do an eligibility check through our website, but actually, if you want, you can just make an application or just send through an email and I can address that. You can download the core documents and read them if you haven't already. Fill in the application form. This application form picture is slightly outdated. The questions are slightly different now, but it's the same process. Go to EasyChair, enter your details, add the form, submit, and wait for confirmation. In previous years, we've had a few issues where the confirmation emails don't always go through. Sometimes EasyChair emails us instead of you to confirm that the application has come through. I don't know why it does that. It is all the fun of EasyChair. But if you have any issues, just send through an email and I can send you through the confirmation if you don't have it, and I can check for you as well. I should highlight that we've not had any issues yet that I'm aware of where someone has submitted and it hasn't gone through. It just sometimes doesn't tell you that it's gone through. And then I think the last thing from me, and then I'll go to the questions in the chat while Pablo does his part, is the timeline. So I think the call closes on the 13th of March, which is a Thursday. Over that weekend, so the 15th and 16th, I will check all the project's eligibility. That will include all the projects that didn't get rolling checked so far. On the Monday, the 18th of March, the expert review process will open. So we'll assign all of the applicants or applications to reviewers, and then we'll have until the 25th of April to read through them. That's not correct. Sorry. They will have 2 weeks. I don't know why it says 25th there. That was a mistake. There's then a week process. I will put the actual dates in the chat. I'm sorry, I don't know how I must have messed something up when I corrected these. Anyway, I'll put the right dates in the chat in a moment. There's then a week between the expert review and the interview process, during which time we'll notify the applicants by the 9th of April whether they've been shortlisted, and that will then open on the 14th of April. So it's a roughly 2-week process. There will be no interviews on the 18th because I think that's Easter at that point. The interviews last 20 minutes if you're shortlisted, and we can't really negotiate the dates. If there are some very good reasons that you can't make the dates, then I can do my best to move them around, but we have a lot of restrictions already in terms of how many people need to be on the interviews and dates that were available. So it's quite limited, unfortunately, in that respect. The interviews take place on Teams. If you're not able to use Teams, that's not the end of the world. We can find a solution. The final selection will take place on the 20th of April, and that will be determined by the scores from the experts, the interviews, and also a workshop that we will have as a consortium to define the other sides of the projects. And then the bootcamp itself launches on the 9th of May. It lasts until the 20th of May, and then we expect that the accelerator would then open kind of a month later on the 16th of June and last for 7 months until the 16th of January. So that is it from me. I'll hand over to Pablo now. If there are any questions that anyone wants to ask out loud, we can take those after Pablo's gone through, and I'll get to answering the questions in the chat that I've missed.
Thank you, Neil and Chris, for your support. And hi, everyone. I'm Pablo from Electronica, and as my colleague just mentioned, we are responsible for delivering the European Union Prize for Citizen Science. And actually, I saw a question in the chat, no, that actually Chris just respond before I was going to mention. This is the last opportunity to apply for the accelerator, let's say again, and for the prize. For now, we don't know if there's going to be any continuation, no? Since we are part of IMPETUS, and the project will end next year, no, in the spring. So this would be the last iteration at the moment. So we cannot say more things about it. And to continue with the price, you could see here the structure, no? And what we are looking is actually for projects, no, citizen science projects that recognize outstanding achievements in the advancement of the knowledge throughout the empowerment of the civil society and in the development of the future. Those projects or initiatives should be in all angles that demonstrate this experience of both citizen engagement with science research, but also with researchers and scientific that are engaging with the society. No, you could see here actually the structure. So we have this grand prize that is not related to any topic or content. Actually, normally the project that won the grand prize are the most excellent for all the submission that we get, and they got this 60,000 euros. Then we have two, let's say, category awards with the diversity and collaboration. And here we are looking for this citizen science project with an excellent in grassroots approaches, explorative collaboration, cultural and gender diversity, community participatory stakeholder engagement, and social inclusion. No, for this award, the winner will won 20,000 euros. And in the award criteria, there's the diversity and collaboration that is really important here to get a really good points in order to be able to win the Diversity and Collaboration Award. Then we have this Digital Community Award, and here we are awarding for excellence in fostering an open and inclusive civil society that fits in the digital age by empowering communities to critically engage with digital technologies. And they should be excellent in the award criterion. That is actually, I think, is the number 2, if I'm not mistaken, which is societal transformation and policy impact. And as happened with the collaboration award, the prize money is 20,000 euros. No, and after that you could see below 27 honorary mentions. No, and here we need to say that those are coming without a money prize, and we are trying to represent all the great citizen science initiatives that are represented in this European research area that we are talking here in terms of eligibility. So I'm going to continue a bit further. Actually, I already just mentioned this part. I'm going to talk about the award criteria that actually you can find all the information in our website. And just to give you, we have 6 award criteria. All have the same value of 5 points each. And the main award criteria that I'm going to mention now are interpreted by the jury members. No, also mentioned that each year we have an independent jury that are reviewing the application. No, also in the website you could see this sub criteria underneath the main criteria that is actually helping the jury members for one side, but also you as an applicants to understand what does it mean the criteria what I'm going to say, no, like scientific quality also what is one of those. The second one, societal and transformation for policy impact, that is really important for digital communities award, if I'm not mistaken here. Then we have the third one, which is diversity and collaboration, really important for the Diversity and Collaboration Award. Then we have the fourth one, that is communication and dissemination. The fifth one is innovation and creativity. And the last one is the European dimension. I'm going to go a bit further in the presentation to talk about the eligibility. No, that is something really important for the accelerator, but also for the prize. And actually, the common question that we are getting, no, and we see it also in the chat before, and also the emails that we are getting in the citizen science help desk, is about this eligibility, no. And we need to mention that all the initiative and projects that are taking place in the European research area are eligible. So one of the things maybe before when you start to think about to apply for the prize or the accelerator is to check that. I think my colleagues Neil and Chris already put the link for this list that we are having, no? And just also to mention that there might be projects, no, that are having transnational collaboration, no, that maybe one partner is outside for this European research area, and those countries means that they would be not eligible. But in this case, doesn't mean that this project is not eligible for the prize if the initiative takes place in the European research area. This is really important to mention. And then as submitters, you could be natural person, a group of natural person, legal entities, group of legal entities. In terms of community initiative, we are asking to choose one person as the authorized representative for the submissions. And also here a difference between the accelerator and the prize. All the projects must be either ongoing, complete, or far enough along in their design for the jury to be able to assess the quality and the impact. Also not older than 2 years, or if complete more than these 2 years, must still show a significant update or further development through active work within this last 2 years. This is actually really important eligibility criteria with the country, no? And maybe here to clarify, because sometimes it's a bit confusing, no, that we are looking for existing citizen science initiative, not for potential application, that in my case, you should go for kick-starting grants. In terms also of fundings, I think I'm going to go a bit further here because we have more eligibility criteria in these slides. Funding project with funding from European Horizon Europe or the European funding scheme are eligible. Also, projects from the accelerator are eligible to receive the prize. Also, another thing that citizen science initiative consisted or benefiting for entities subject to sanctions in the European research area are not eligible. Another thing here, since this is our third call, previous winners for the grand prize or the category awards that I just mentioned are not eligible to reapply with the same project, but previous recipients for honorary mentions are eligible to reapply to the grand prize or category award, but not to win another honorary mention, no? So also a project that submit last year also eligible to reapply, because here we need to mention again, each year we have a new jury member that evaluates the project, no? So maybe if you apply in the previous year but you didn't get any of the prizes, maybe this year could be a good possibility since the jury change every year. It's not the same jury member. Next slide, we're going to talk about the admissibility for the prize. And here we need to mention also, as happened with the accelerator, that the applicants must register online and submit all the mandatory information that you can find in these forms. And when you submit and complete your application, you will get an entry will be sent via your email as soon as you receive the confirmation. That means you are already in the competition. Important, the language should be in English. In other languages would be not evaluated. So this is really important to take in consideration that your application should be in English. and the deadline. In our case, it's a bit earlier than the accelerator, so you could find it here is the 10th of March at midnight. After that, there is no possible to submit any applications in our platform. And there is also, for the case of the accelerator, but also the case of the prize, there is no fee to enter in the competition. So this is free of charge. You don't need to pay anything to complete the submission for the accelerator, but also for the prize. And now let's go a bit more deep in how to apply to the European citizen science. I think my colleagues are going to post the link that you could see in the slides. So the most important thing, as I was mentioning before, first go to the website. Actually, I would recommend first to start with the form, check the eligibility. I think it's really clear in our website. You need to also create an account in our platform, complete the application form that I'm going to talk later about the different fields, upload any videos, slides, asset, and really important, when everything that is mandatory in the form is complete, you are going to see the submission button in green. When you click it, that means you are done with your application and your project is submitted to the competition. This is really important. Don't forget to close in the submission button. Actually, I already sent a few emails to all the applicants in order to remind them to submit the project. Otherwise, we'll not enter in the competition. So after that, I'm going to show you what are the fields that you could actually also find in the website. The ones with the asterisks are the mandatory fields. So you need to answer those in order to be able to finalize your submission for the prize. Then the first one will be the title of your initiative. Here, the location. And here, in terms of location, we are talking about the country or countries where the citizen science initiative took place, no? As we were talking about these countries for the European research area, the time frame of the initiative. Here we are talking about this ongoing or this within these 2 last years. Then an abstract for your project, the year that the project was launched, and in this case it's created, but we're talking about the launch of the project. Then description that you should be really clear here in the description and match the concept of your project and initiative there, including an explanation on how the submission respond to the award criteria that I was mentioned before, as you could find actually in our website. Then the next one would be the research question here, initiative team, number of citizen science engaged, an estimation number of those citizens engaged in case you don't have the concrete numbers. Then citizen engaged, so here give us a profile of the community of citizen science and their role in the project, including how they have been or are recruited, and another question about the benefits of the money for the prize. And here we are not talking about a budget proposal. It's more describe how you are going to plan to use the prize money to benefit your community in case your project is selected as winner of the European prize for citizen science. And this gives to the jury an understanding on how the prize money would push the accomplishment of your initiative. Then we have, I think it's project URL, then keywords, research disciplines, software, hardware, and the last part is about the applicants, no, which is the information, the contact information about the submitter. Again, you can also upload videos. We ask not to have more than 3 to 5 minutes. Also, PowerPoints, better not to have more than 10 slides, image, papers. Those material will be added in the final jury round. And actually, the next slide is what you're going to find in the platform. No, when you create the account, this will be the first screen that you're going to get, which is about the title of your project, and then you can see here the different fields that I was mentioning before in the platform. Again, this is what you're going to see. There's not something really complicated. You just need to go through the platform, check the fields with the asterisks, and actually we implement this here because we had actually a lot of questions in the previous calls about the application. No? So this year you would be able to download the application. So when you submit your project, you could download all the information that you put in the application and you will get a PDF. Really important, as I was mentioning before, in the top side of the website, you would find this submission button in grid. That means you have all the mandatory field complete, and then you can click in the button and submit your application. And this is the last slide, and I think we can then open for questions for all of you. The time frame for the price, as I was mentioning before, the 10th of March is the last day to apply for the price, and then we're going to have an eligibility check on that week that us, the Ars Electronica team, will check the eligibility and the admissibility criteria that are met in your application. In case we have any doubts, we will contact you in order to clarify our doubts or questions about that. Then after that, there's going to start the jury review. First, we are going to have our first jury review from the 14th of March to the 4th of April. And here, all the submissions that score higher than the threshold of 20 out of 30, because 30 is the maximum points that you could get in your application, will be reevaluated in the final selection process that would take on-site in Linz on the final jury selection. As I was mentioning, it would be from the 4th to the 12th of April. And then we will have at the mid of June, the public winners announcement, when all the winners would be announced. And finally, in the Ars Electronica Festival, that this year would be from the 3rd to the 7th of September, we will have the award ceremony with all the winners for this year's prize. And also this year in the festival, we will have an event. So most of the winners from the accelerator and for the prize in the past year and in this final round would be represented in the conversation, exhibition, and workshop during the Ars Electronica Festival this year. And then I think this is the last slide. So now we can open the discussion for and respond all the questions that you have in the chat. So maybe Chris and Neil, because you were checking the chat, I don't know if it's better to first give the voice to the people that we have here. I think we have a big crowd, so maybe if they want to raise their hand, unmute themselves and ask the question directly would be best. Otherwise, we can also, they can type it in the chat and we could respond them.
Thanks, Neil, for doing that. And Pablo, sorry. Thanks, Pablo, for doing that. And I see that Neil has been very busy in the chat addressing quite a few of the questions already posed. I don't know, Neil, would it be easier for us to open the floor and see if anyone who hasn't had their question answered wants to contribute directly, or to go through the chat list? It's just a little trickier now, as yeah, some of them have been responded to.
Yeah, I may have missed one or two because I was trying to go very quickly. And I know that there were one or two questions that I think were for the prize that I have missed. So I guess there are two options. If anyone wants to ask a question sort of out loud, you should be able to use the raise hand button. It's next to the react button. Obviously, the language will be different slightly, but it should be sort of the top of your screen. It's got a little hand. And I should be able to unmute. In theory, I should be able to unmute. You will see how this goes. Otherwise, if you want to type in the chat, that's also fine. I will give this a go. So you should be able to speak now. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, so hello. I don't have access to camera, but I think it's not a problem. So first of all, I would like, and I think I can speak out of for all participants, that we are pretty grateful to Neil, Pablo, Chris for organizing and clearing up some important points for us. and Neil already answered one of my question about citizen participation level. So let me clarify. As far as I understood, it's okay if we engage people into not directly like gathering data or something, but teaching them something, like providing them crucial knowledge for survival. It's okay as part of citizen science, right?
Neil, you're muted.
I do that all the time. Sorry. Yeah, so it's a slightly complicated question because ultimately part of the decision that is made on that front is made by the experts who we have who evaluate the applications. There's nothing in explicitly that prevents projects that have this kind of educational goal from participating in the accelerator, as long as the training gives the participants some kind of ability and they're able to go out and maybe do something. So projects that just disseminate like science knowledge would be necessary. So to give an example, projects that maybe just talk about their research, that wouldn't come under the accelerator. Projects that train participants and give them knowledge based on existing research and things, that would be fine. What I would say is that the best thing to do is to just there's a question on the application form about kind of what activities the citizens will engage in, and it's best for that one to explain kind of how they'll participate in the training and kind of what the outcomes will be for them. It's a slightly Sorry, I was just going to say it's a slightly difficult question because we have in the past had some applicants who have basically just proposed like a sort of science engagement evening, and it's a very one-off process for the citizens. They come along, they attend the evening, and they go away again. For the accelerator, we're kind of expecting usually a kind of more ongoing engagement, but that could be through workshops or training. It's not necessarily an issue that it's training based.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so I understand. Most of it comes to, it will be known for sure when the committee sees the application. That's to summarize it, I guess, a little bit. Another question that I have is that in applications, there is a lot of categories that like which scientific impact your project have, which social impact, and you have to rate political impact, economic impact, and we have to rate the level of impact. Is it better to try to hit as much of these categories as possible, or is it better to concentrate on one but do it like nearly perfectly? For example, have a huge social impact but a really quality one rather than trying to hit every one of them. How did you intend those graphs to be?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll be completely honest. For the accelerator, for the recruitment process, at least for selecting projects, we don't really consider the impact in that much detail. The impact numbers are only important for sustaining projects, and really it's only to see that they have some kind of impact, or they are used later on in the process to kind of understand what sort of impact support you might require. We have a partner organization who focus very much on impact. So I would say don't worry too much about the impact numbers for now, and it's perfectly fine to have, say, a big scientific impact and then less impact in the other areas, or an equal impact in the other areas. The impact isn't really considered at the application stage. It's just there to give us some kind of guidelines later on and kind of what support you might need.
I got it. Thank you very much. That's all of my questions. Wish good luck to all the participants, and that's it for me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I actually realized that this is I should have just let you all have microphones. I'll go down the list. I think now
yeah, I just unmuted myself. Thank you so much, being mindful of the time. Just clarifying, because I just realized that the two differences, like the differences between the criteria for the prize and the accelerator. Let's say I'm part of a partnership that actually works beyond the European Research Zone, or forgot the actual name. But let's say the main subcontractor or subgrantee is based in Germany, but the rest of the partnership or the consortium actually in different parts of the world, and the citizen type of engagement is beyond the research zone. Would that impact the actual citizen science like outcomes that you're looking for or you're looking to support? Because in that case, the actual operations are going to be conducted within the research zone, but the citizens are actually not. And please answer if you can from both ends of the accelerator and the prize if you're able. Thank you.
Maybe I can go first. As I was mentioned in terms of the prize, the important is that the initiative with the citizen science is based in Europe. No, as I was mentioning before, there are actually projects that have initiative also all over the globe. No, but when they present this project, they are also mentioning, no, in terms of the project that they are doing things outside of the European research area. But here would be really important to focus on the activities or the initiative you are doing with the citizen science in the European research area. This is what we are gonna look for, no? In this case, the project could be worldwide, but the initiatives of what we are going to be evaluating is also this European base. We are going to also consider what you are doing abroad, but I think here is really important to mention that should be in the European research area.
Thanks.
Sorry, I was just ushering my cat out of the room. For the accelerator, it's slightly complicated. So we are only able to sort of fund and deal with organizations or legal entities based in the European research area. You could have a consortium that includes partners outside of the European research area, if assuming that one of the applicants is based in the European research area, they can take the money and disseminate it. That's fine. In terms of the activities, unfortunately, we're only really able to support activities that take place in the European research area. That doesn't mean that you can't have activities that are outside of it as part of the wider project. So particularly for sustaining projects, what we often have is they have maybe a smaller part of the project that is part of Impetus, and then they have maybe another part that isn't, and that other part might involve activities wherever. But unfortunately for Impetus, we would only really be able to consider the activities that take place in the European research area. It's part of the restrictions that we have in terms of sort of how we're funded and supported by the European Commission and the activities we're able to kind of take place in or engage in.
Thanks a lot.
No problem. Great. I am sorry. I'm going down the list of. Can I allow everyone to access the microphone? It's surprisingly slow. Danny, you should be able to speak now, I think, if I've done that correctly.
Is it Diana next?
Just see if I...
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes. Hello, Diana.
Hello, and you cannot see that. Sorry. All right. Thank you for calling me. I'm sorry for coming late. I came because I'm a little bit lost in the call. Last year we had a quick starter project, and at the evaluation interview, I somehow got the impression that it would be welcome that we apply again, but I couldn't get the response to my burning question. As long as the new project would not be a continuation of the old one, because the old one was about food sustainability. We don't even have such a topic this year, and anyhow we have another idea, so that would be a quick starter. At the same time, we are not newcomers, we are an old one, and it seems that if you're applying a second time, you cannot apply for a quick starter. So what to do in this situation?
Yes, so we unfortunately have the restriction that projects that have previously, or individuals and legal entities that have received a kickstarting grant can't receive a second kickstarting grant, and vice versa. Or if they've got a sustaining grant, they can't then receive a second sustaining grant. One option for projects that are looking from last year who maybe don't necessarily fit into this year's challenges is that some of the, I should be careful how I word this, but some of the Challenge 2 sub-challenges are quite broad. They were selected by our citizen panel, who are all great, and I'm very, very grateful for their contribution. But they maybe didn't have the clearest idea in mind when they put those together in terms of what they were expecting. So what I would say is it may well be that you could take perhaps a previous idea and massage it, shall we say, to address the Challenge 2 topics. Another option, I guess, if you had a previous kickstarting grant, it's done by individual and legal entity. So potentially the project, if it was led by someone else, could potentially carry on in that vein. But this is a restriction that we have in terms of how we're funded. So there's not a lot I can really suggest there, unfortunately. It's been an issue. We've had quite a few applicants from last year who have new ideas that we're unfortunately not able to support this year, except either a sustaining or kickstarting projects based on what they had last year.
Sorry, can I ask back if I understand you correctly? So there is a way to say that the new project is a continuation of the old project if it fits under any of the new challenges. Do you mean that we should continue with food sustainability and to try to squeeze it into the new challenges? Or do you mean that there is a way to explain how working on, I'm just saying a thing, waste management is a continuation of last year's project that was about food? So do we have to work on food? That's the clear question.
So not necessarily. So I'll give you an example of a project that we had last year. So this project, I'll change the name slightly in the details, but the project was, the initial project was looking at, I think it was forest fires or something in some area, and they were applying for a completely different type of project, but they had their existing community in place. They already had participants in place. They already knew who their participants were and what their interests were. So although the nature of the project was maybe different, they already had this established community, and they already knew that this established community would have some interest in the new activities. So in that case, we would consider it as a sustaining project, because although it's a new project, it's got these resources in place. What I should highlight is that I'm not the one who makes the decisions on how the projects are selected. It's selected by our expert panel, and it would obviously depend on from project to project, and projects don't get any kind of bonus points or anything because they're a project that we funded in the past. But if it was something that you were looking at doing and you think that the project will be relevant to the new challenges, then that would in theory be that wouldn't necessarily be a problem. If assuming it's got these established resources or community in place, it doesn't necessarily mean that the new sustaining project has to be exactly the same as the kickstarting project. This happens all the time with sustaining projects. A lot of them use the impetus funding and support to trial something new or to do something different that it diverges from their previous project. And so particularly with the Challenge 2 topics, it would be possible to look at the Challenge 2 topics, for example, and still have this focus on food. We would have to kind of judge it on the merits of the application as it kind of came in, if that makes sense.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I will carry on going down my
I can try and also Next, we have Toya with a hand up. I can also try and vet some of the questions that haven't been addressed in the questions, if that would be helpful.
That would be great. So the microphone should be enabled now.
Yes, hi, thank you for the webinar. I already asked a part of my question on the chat. It was about data collection, but from the answer, I realized I probably have another question. So we are part of Horizon project, and we are doing a bottom-up data collection on sustainability, transition, very linked to the SDGs. But our data collection is going to start next month, and you answered that as it's okay because it's no more than 6 months since the start of the accelerator. But by then, the data collection is finished. So I don't know whether we can try to have a sustainable, I would say, like sustainable grant, sustaining grants, and therefore carry on with the data collection in case we get the grants, or the data collection need to be also during the grants, the original data collection. Does it make sense what I'm trying to ask?
Yeah, that's a good question. It would probably be too early to get a sustaining grant, because one of the things we look at for the sustaining grant is this issue of kind of past impact. And I guess having only just completed the data collection, you wouldn't necessarily be in a position to really focus on the impacts. One option would be, and we've had some projects do this in the past, if you have activities that maybe happen just before the accelerator, you could use the accelerator to do something different with those activities. So if, as an example, if you had a project to give a vague example from a previous year, you have a project that focuses on heat in an urban environment, and your project maybe starts, it's actually been going on in kind of this time of year, so February, March, because it has to happen in the winter. What you could use the IMPETUS support for is to kind of engage citizens in analyzing and kind of engaging with the data you've collected. So maybe you do co-design workshops, maybe you engage the citizens in kind of defining subsequent research questions or something like that. So the project is still supporting your initial goals, but it's not necessarily directly aligned with that data collection process.
Okay, so sorry,
I was just saying, another option is that maybe if you collect the data now, it may be that if you are aware that you might want to collect subsequent data, it's fine to have the IMPETUS part as a kind of not standalone as such, but you're gathering additional data for the topic. It's obviously quite a complex topic because it depends very much on the specifics of the project. But the thing that kind of decides between a kickstarting and sustaining project is this question of kind of how long has it been going and whether you have these existing resources and community. In this case, although you would have some of the resources in the community, you wouldn't have the data analyzed, you wouldn't have the results, so you would still be a kickstarting project in that sense.
Okay. So if we carry on with the data collection, it would be a kickstart. Instead, if we choose to analyze with the community, the data collected in first wave, then it would be the other one, sustaining grant.
I'd say in this case they'd both be kickstarting because because you effectively, because it's such a, if you were only starting now, it's not been going for 6 months, and even if you'd collected the data in time, you probably haven't done the analysis by that point. So I would say it would still be a kickstarting grant. You could go for a sustaining grant if you want, but I would say that it's probably not the right fit because of this question of impact. So that's kind of the big difference between the kickstarting and sustaining projects, I guess, is that we would expect a sustaining project to have some kind of element of or evidence of impact in the way that a kickstarting grant we wouldn't. And I don't think between now and sort of, well, the application is closing in about a month, you would have enough time to kind of build up that impact. So we would still consider it a kickstarting event, I think.
Okay, thank you very much. I just wanted to be sure it could still be a kickstart, even if we already done some data collection. That's the reason why I didn't thought it was okay.
Yeah, no, that's fine. It's obviously difficult. We're aware that the time frame for the accelerator sometimes doesn't align with align perfectly. I think in this case, it's tricky how you'd frame it, but I think it would be a kickstarting project, and I think we would consider it on that kind of basis.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. I've just seen that there are some.
Yeah, so I've just going from the top and moving down. We'll try and get through as many questions as we have. We have about 12 minutes left. Maybe this can be somewhat quick fire. Laura Boffey, I apologize throughout if I get your name incorrect, dyslexic and English speaker. Can two legal entities be in two different consortium submitting two different projects? I believe this would probably be before the accelerator.
Yes, so I think that one was answered already, but the general rule is that one legal entity can only submit one application each year. To be completely honest, I am quite lenient on that because, especially in like a large university, I have no idea what's going on in the other parts of King's, for example. So we don't really enforce that at the application stage, but when it gets to like interview and particularly funding, we're only able to fund one project per legal entity. So in that sense, it's not really worth applying with more than one, but we do have that leeway because it can be impossible to really know, that someone else has submitted something.
Okay, great. Do also feel free to put your hand up as well. We always encourage people to have some different voices rather than us. But Louisa Borges has asked, which I think has probably been mentioned, but probably interesting to reiterate, can PhD students within the consortium claim compensation for their time working on the project? So salaries and such, I suppose.
Yeah, please do claim salaries. We're not expecting you to work for free. This question comes up every year. I don't work for free. I wouldn't expect any of you to either. And there's no rule that we have around how much of the budget can be used for salaries or anything like that. The only thing to bear in mind is that every part of the budget other than subcontracting has to come with 25% overheads. That's a European Commission rule. It's not ours. We can't move on that, unfortunately. So it is written in the application form, but it does need to be calculated at that point. There are reporting requirements around how you would report that the funds have been used for these things. We use what's known as lump sum funding rules. To cut a long story short, effectively, we don't necessarily require that you submit a bunch of receipts and invoices at the end of the project. However, there is a fairly strong possibility that projects will be audited by the Commission, which means that they would be expected to provide evidence of their spending. I think we're likely to have something like 120 projects that we've supported by the end of IMPETUS. The summary is basically that we would expect that a project being audited is very high, an individual project being audited is quite low. So whether you'd need to do that or not, I don't know, but I'm not trying to suggest that anyone tries to commit fraud or anything like that. But it's just worth bearing in mind that you may well be asked for evidence of that at the end of the project by someone, but it wouldn't. It's not likely to be us.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Neil. If I have a subcontractor, does tax is included in the budget? I'm not sure if does that make sense to you two?
Yes. So I guess this is for the accelerator. It's complicated. If you would need to pay, obviously it depends on the country and things. If you need to pay tax on it, I guess you would give I always get net and gross confused, but you would give the number with the tax included as part of the budget if you need to do it. I can't say for certain if you'd need to pay tax to the subcontractor because it changes based on country and various other factors. But I would just give the amount that you need to pay the subcontractor, including tax, within the budget calculations for the accelerator.
Okay, I hope that answers your question. Anna has asked, again, a bit more of a, hopefully quite a quick one. It's a question that comes up quite a lot. I've been asked this as well, but if I understand correctly, an individual can present a proposal for the accelerator call. Hopefully a quick one, this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Individuals can submit proposals. That's not a problem. One thing I should highlight is because of the lump sum funding rules, what happens is you get effectively half of the amount at the beginning of the project and half of the amount at the end. That can be difficult for individuals. because let's say that you have upfront costs of maybe 15,000, but you only get 10,000 at the beginning and the other 10,000 at the end, you would need to carry that extra 5,000 cost yourself until the project ends. Unfortunately, despite our best efforts, there's not anything we can do about that. So you may find as an individual that if you have an organization that you can submit through, like your university or place of employment or whatever, that may be easier, but we don't, as long as you're able to sign and take the money and things like that, you're legally registered, we don't have any restriction on kind of whether you're an individual or not. It doesn't even factor for the evaluation process.
Okay, great, thank you. Two last ones. So I'm at the end of the chat. So if I have missed your burning question, please do put your hand up or put it back in the chat. We do apologize. There's just a lot of people with a lot of questions, but these ones are relatively longly written, but I believe it's Tung. Sorry. I would like to clarify the research activity in a citizen science project for the accelerator funding. As a project over 6 months, can we use the funds to develop a data analyst application or system? We are having difficulty analyzing and validating data from the community and need to commission non-EU partners to implement technology solutions for this problem. A bit of a specific question this time. I suppose it's asking what can people do with the sustaining grants? Can they develop their data further, or does it need to be still kind of in the realm of citizen science and have that participation, even if that was before?
What I would say is there's nothing in theory against that, but I would argue that maybe the accelerator isn't the best structure for that kind of activity. There are a few reasons. The first is that because we have this 7-month cutoff in development, my partner is a software developer. Most of my friends are software developers. Development is a very it can take however long it takes. It doesn't necessarily fit nicely into the link for the accelerator. The kinds of training and support that we offer for the accelerator aren't really around development. There are 1 or 2 developers within the consortium. I guess I would technically count as one, but when we in the mentoring team probably don't have the right kind of background to kind of support those kinds of activities. And then the other thing is that because the requirement for the accelerator is some kind of engagement of citizens, unless the citizens are going to be involved in the development process, it probably wouldn't fit in that sense. So it's difficult to know about the very specific context, but I would say the accelerator probably isn't the right place for that kind of thing. To give a more general example, we have applications that are submitted every year where someone wants to build a smartphone app. And again, the accelerator probably isn't the right place for that because we just don't have the necessary expertise to support with smartphone app development. So it wouldn't really be fair on everyone else to accept your project and then not give you the support that you actually need for the activities that you actually intend to do.
Thank you, Neil. There's one very long question which may take us over the time, but I might try and push that to the end if Idrissi Sarah, again, apologize with the names. It just seems like a very specific and a very long question that might be better perhaps emailing Neil directly rather than being answered here. Maybe we'll have time, but there's just a few small ones at the end. Toa has asked, is the bootcamp in person? I can answer that. No, it'll be online. Do you know the exact dates or roundabout dates for that, Neil?
It was on one of the slides. I think it ends on the 9th of May. Sorry, PowerPoint just crashed on me. Let me just double check. Yes, it starts on the 9th of May, so it's the 9th to the 20th of May are the dates that we have in mind.
And that's all online. And there's a degree that they are compulsory, that someone needs to attend those from your organization. Laura Buffy has asked, do we need to list overheads in the budget? She had some issues with this last year because she hadn't considered that in her application.
Yeah, so this one is a slightly complicated one. In theory, the answer is no. But please do list the overheads in the budget. The reason for this is that although it's not considered at eligibility, One of the things that we have to consider for the applications themselves is whether the project can be carried out within the accelerator within the time and resources requested. And if the budget doesn't count for overheads, then it would go over the if it's, let's say it's 17,000, once you add 25%, which is going to be what, 4,250, that would go over the 20,000 that we have available. And that means that we don't know if the project will be feasible in the accelerator itself. So although it wouldn't necessarily be the be all and end all, it would potentially mean you'd have to rejig everything at the end. So overheads should be calculated 25% for everything other than subcontracting where there are no overheads.
Thank you, Neil. I know we're short on time and we'd like to say a few goodbyes and stuff, but how does Impetus protect copyright? Or how Impetus protects copyright? It's a good question. I'm not sure. Do you have
the accelerator, I think that's addressed in the grantee agreements, so in the contracts. You retain ownership of your intellectual property. I think there's some kind of license in place to allow Impetus to sort of use some of it, but effectively the rights remain yours, the copyright remains yours. We don't take ownership of it. If you need more details than that, I can find out from someone who would know, but my understanding is that effectively it all remains yours, and we're granted, like, I think, temporary use of some of it for the accelerator activities that would require it, like the video and maybe the website. But otherwise it's all yours to do with as you wish.
Okay, I know that we're running low on time, but we did end late, so depending on what people's availabilities are, or if Neil and Pablo are able to stay for a little while longer, maybe we can just put the emails slide back on, and if you aren't able to stay just for a couple of minutes just after the session, you can send. Pablo and Neil are probably more versed in being able to answer your questions, but you can also contact me on social media or via the comms email, and I will probably direct you to someone else. Again, would like to thank everyone for attending, and I'll pass you over to Neil and Pablo just for some last words for those that have to leave.
Yeah, from me, thank you all for attending. I will stick around for a few moments, so if there are other questions that need answering, I think there are one or two in the chat that have maybe been missed. I'm happy to stick around and answer those. I've got another half an hour before I need to do anything. Otherwise, this open call at impetus for cs.eu email goes to me. I am slightly behind on the emails. Unfortunately, I was away last week snowboarding, falling down hills, claiming that I was snowboarding. So I am slightly behind on answering other emails I missed. But if you email that one, I should have an answer for you by the end of the week, if you need it.
And from my side, thanks to all the participants today. Actually, was a really nice webinar with a lot of questions and a lot of interaction that is actually really helpful for us, all your feedback and all the questions that actually help us to develop further the accelerator and the price. As we were mentioning, if you have any question, you can see here the emails, and we will be happy to answer your question. And also good luck for all of you.
And yeah, the deadline for applications, do remember to get them in, is the 10th, I believe at midday for the accelerator. No, that's for the prize.
Well, the prize is the 10th midnight, and I think the 12th, if I'm not mistaken, noon for the accelerator.
13th, but so the 10th and the 13th. Sorry, too many dates. But yeah, thank you for attending. And again, we probably can't stay for super long, but if you've got a really burning question that can't be emailed, we did start 10 minutes late, so we could probably stay for a couple of minutes just after, just to address your question as quickly as possible. Yeah, thank you all for joining us.
So, Andrea, we will give you the voice. Just let's wait a bit until maybe the people are leaving, and then.
Probably depends on how pressed people have for time. So perhaps we have Andrea has their hand up, followed by Stanto. I'm sorry again for the pronunciation. So first of all, Andrea.
Well, I'll just quickly go. There was a long question in the chat. I hope the person's still around. Can the research take place in a small French city located at the borders of Germany, France, and Switzerland? That's absolutely fine. as long as it takes place somewhere in the European Research Area, we don't really care where. And Switzerland is now considered part of the European Research Area as of, I think, or will be as of the future very soon. And then the longer part of that question around whether the activities would be eligible for the, sorry, that's my cat breaking in, it will be eligible for the accelerator. It's really hard for me to say because I don't really have the decision on that. It's kind of the expert review panel that make that decision. What I would say is, as long as you can kind of justify what it is that you plan to do, there aren't really any activities that are outside of the scope of the accelerator, as long as they have relevance to the challenges and they have some kind of engagement of citizens. So it's just a matter of kind of justifying that. But from what I can see, it seems like that would be eligible, but it's hard to know without seeing the full application.
Great. We did. Andrea was on, but their hand seems to have dropped off, so I don't know if their question was answered. We'll go to Diana first, and then if Andrea comes back, then yeah.
Sorry, I was just hesitating to come back, but maybe it's easier to ask the question here instead of sending an email. So after your answer, I was turning it in my head. You suggested two solutions to apply with a new project after last year in a sustaining scheme, and but you also suggested, did I understand correctly, if the same organization applies with a new project coordinator with a new project, it could be a quick starter?
It's more that what I was saying is that the restriction is more on individuals and organizations. So effectively, we've had some examples where there is a project that was led by one organization, a new organization has taken on the same activities, and in that case, they could be effectively funded again, because it's not the project itself, it's the organizations that we kind of have to look at for this, and but our restrictions on organizations rather than necessarily the activities. I don't know if that would really apply here, because I think it was mostly your project. You were leading it, so I don't know if that would be the case. But what I would advise,
the organization would be the same, because we would like to apply, but if a new project coordinator could make it a new project, because I'm not sure I'm going to lead that in this second round. So I was just hesitating if I understood you correctly, but it's going to be the same organization. So the same organization with a new project coordinator wouldn't count as a quick starter, because the organization counts, right?
it would depend on who the contract and agreement was signed with. So if it was signed with an individual and it was a new individual, even if it's from the same organization, that would be fine. If it was signed with the organization, then it wouldn't be okay, because it's effectively the same signature. That's the fact that makes all the difference.
Yeah, okay. I wondered. Okay, thank you so much.
Great. We have one more question, and then, unless it's something really like pressing, probably be our last question of our session. Manuel, I'm sorry.
Hi.
Yeah, hiya.
Hi, thanks for the webinar. Okay, my question is, we are developing a technology to fight energy poverty, right? Like an efficient heater. And our idea is, as a result of our research, to end up producing a patent and then licensing it to heater producers, right? Because we realize that it's too expensive for us to launch the heater ourselves. So the question is, can the result of our citizen research end up in a patent, or are we supposed to produce only open source results? And can the patent costs be included in the budget?
You would. So I'll take the first one first. It can. A patent, I think, would be fine. I think our impact partner would love it. The costs, I think, would also be fine. The thing I would say is that if the aim of the project is mostly around development and kind of developing a product, I would reiterate my earlier comment that it may not be the best fit for the accelerator. I mean, we evaluate any project on the basis of what was proposed, but again, we don't necessarily have the right expertise to support that well, it may be that the project would still fit in the accelerator, and that's fine. But and there's no restriction that there wouldn't be any issue with it becoming a patent. But if that was kind of the goal of the project, it may be that there are other venues that would. Sorry, my cat's running all over the place. There are other venues that would maybe fit better with that kind of activity.
All right, thank you.
Oh, Chris, you seem to be muted.
Sorry about that. We do have one last question, but I am going to draw a line under this one just because I know Neil needs to get away for another meeting. And so, yeah, one last question from Valerio. Sorry again, not very good with names.
Valerio, I'm guessing. I'm going to let you speak, hopefully.
Okay, do you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, thanks. Just a question about the definition of citizen science. In our case, we have a research project that involved 44 children of a primary school. It was a project about the use of technology in education. Is it eligible according to you? It's a citizen science, can be considered citizen science?
Yeah.
You Neil.
I would say that it kind of depends a little bit on what the children were doing, but we've had lots of projects in the past that have been based on kind of the activity of school children. That's not necessarily an issue. One thing I would highlight is that with the accelerator starting in June and then running till January, it's kind of the worst possible points for the school because it starts right at the beginning of the school holidays. So if the activity involved re-engaging children or engaging with school children again, it's worth considering kind of the timeline and how that would look. But there's no restriction necessarily that school children can't be participants in the project. We've had quite a few projects that have used that in the past.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, unless there's any more burning questions, I think I'm going to draw a line underneath here. Again, thank you for your time and apologies for running slightly over. But yeah, thank you. Neil or Pablo, any final words? Or
I think that's it.
It's just good luck from me. And if you do have any further questions, feel free to email that. The recording for this will be up soon as well. So if you want to revisit it, then that's fine.
great. Thank you all for your time.